It's time for RSPW Rewind. Back this week after 1 week off. Can you feel it? Can you smell it? It smells like 1996 this week. The stench of 1996, the start of the New York Yankees dynasty, Kurt Angle winning an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck, and the start of the NWO invasion in WCW. We'll get to that in a second, but we begin with this post from March 25th, 1996, from Mike the Mark Neymark, titled Mero's WWF Gimmick? ? This was around the time that Marc Mero, if you recall, had jumped from WCW to the WWF. He was also, I believe, a known lurker in the RSPW group back in the day, or at least people seem to think that it was the real Marc Mero who used to lurk and sometimes post in RSPW. So he had his fair number of fans. Anyway, here's Mike's post. It says, on the eve of Uncensored, which I'm sure will stink and make me glad I'm saving my cash for the Extreme Fighting pay-per-view, the thoughts of many RSPWers turn to our favorite local lurker, Marc Johnny B. Bad Mero, and his future with the McMahon organization. Now, the WWF has some great creative minds that have generated some fantastic gimmicks for untalented wrestlers, such as The Undertaker, The Ultimate Warrior, and Diesel. The WWF also must have some sterno-drinking nincompoops who have come up with some god-awful gimmicks for wrestlers, ranging from the pointless, like Kama, Isaac Yankem, and Man Mountain Rock, to the offensive, like Saba Simba, Akeem, Papa Shango, and Doink, to the career-ending, like Red Rooster and adorable Adrian Adonis. So what can Mr. Mero look forward to doing for the next several years? Well, here are a few ideas. Number 1, Mexican Marco Mero. Yeah, sure, he's not Mexican, but Razor Ramon was born in Minnesota, and Ludwig Borga couldn't even order a beer in Finland. Imagine this. We cut to the streets of rural Mexico. Doc Hendricks is there, and he says he's looking for the greatest wrestler in Mexico, but he doesn't know his name. He asks a local rube in broken Spanish, ¿De donde es el grande wrestler?, who points over to a shady spot under a tree. There is a man sitting there wearing an enormous embroidered sombrero and multicolored serape, taking a siesta. Doc walks up and asks the man if he is the great Mexican wrestler. He says, sí. And Doc gets excited. He presses for more information, and he says, my name is Marco Mero, but they call me Quicksilver. Maybe Tito Santana could do the interview or something. Number 2, WWF loves musical themes. Cyndi Lauper, Oscar the Rapper, Man Mountain Rock, Dubba J. Mr. Mero seems pretty agile, so why not Too Funky Marc Mero? The interview could start at a major intersection where bums are holding up signs to passing cars with things like "We'll wash pets for food" or "PhD in music theory, please help." Then we see Mero decked out in fly but ragged duds. His sign says, "Too funky, please help." Every time a car stops at the intersection with the radio on and the windows down, he starts to dance like Bobby Brown with a squirrel in his pants. Now, when you're that damn funky, you'd better be able to defend yourself from those who are jealous of your funkmanship. What sixth circle of hell did I fall into here? Is what I'm wondering when I pulled this post. So what have I done here? But this is my favorite. Number 3. Marc the Mark Mero. This gimmick starts like the Hillbilly Jim angle, with Mero in the crowd. And boy, he sure does get into this great WWF action, huh? When Diesel finishes a match, the lights dim and the Undertaker appears near the exit. Diesel leaves the ring to confront him. When Mero jumps the rail, he falls to his knees, he grabs Diesel's leg, and he starts to blubber uncontrollably. Please, Big Daddy Cool, don't go after the Undertaker. Don't you understand? He's dead. You can't hurt him. The urn. Security nabs him and he's dragged off camera, but returns next week to pull similar shenanigans with another superstar, to cry at the latest Shawn Michaels inspirational video, or cower in fear when Vader glances at him. Eventually, Mero storms the ring against somebody like the Body Donnas, and he slugs one of them for threatening an old lady in the crowd or something. He becomes the ultimate Mark, and can do some color commentary as a Mark, before returning to the ring. Marc Mero is truly one of the greatest things I've ever heard. As awful as those first two ideas were, this one, it was almost worth it. It made this whole post worth it. But I guess that's kind of the Eugene character, right? Wasn't that kind of what the Eugene character was? All those years later, he was a Mark. He marked out for everybody. Marc Mero. I love it. May 27th, 1996, the night that changed everything. On Nitro, when Scott Hall made his WCW debut coming out of the crowd, that night, Lawrence authored a post on RSPW titled, Razor, Scott Hall, in WCW. What do you think? Here's what he said. I think the angle works, especially for marks who must be wondering what the hell is going on. What I just saw when I logged into RSPW just now proves it. Unfortunately, it works at the expense of WCW's future. The WWF guys are clearly the aggressors here, and if they put them against the Blood Runs Cold, whoever they are, in response to Hall's challenge to get 3 of the toughest guys, what does that say about the talent already in WCW? Easy, that they're not tough enough. Stupid move. Let's play this out, shall we? It gets worse. Razor and Diesel, Hall and Nash, come in and kick everybody's asses for a while, until Hulk Hogan gets through making his movie, and Nacho gets a shrink, and then voila, they step in, and around August, surprise, surprise, Nash and Hall either turn babyface or they are reduced to jobber status. Yawn. Another stupid move. So it sounds like Lawrence had it all figured out here. Simon Jester responds, I don't believe that the 3 stars from Blood Runs Cold will be those that face Razor, nor do I believe that it's a given that Diesel will join Razor in this angle. Diesel has a very expensive long-term contract, so I don't think Eric will waste him on this. Now, how could he know? Okay, hey, Simon, he's not a predictor of the future here. How could he know? But it's still funny to look back on comments like this. I hope they don't waste Diesel on a storyline like this. I think things turned out pretty well for him, I would say. He says Eric should throw some of his existing talent at this and make it look like a genuine match and not a blowout. While I would crack up to see Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, the Gambler, and Chris Kanyon defeat Ramon, I don't see it happening. D. Crows chimes in. Says, so it seems that Bischoff has decided to end, quote-unquote, the WCW-WWF war his way. We already know that the Blood Runs Cold promo must be for Diesel, since this past weekend they've been running the name Glacier at the end of it. My guess is that Razor, Diesel, and maybe another WWF defector will challenge WCW's 3 best at either the Great American Bash or Bash at the Beach. All 3 WWF stars will job to the WCW guys, and at the end of the evening they will pronounce that WCW is where the big boys play, and throw some insults at McMahon and company. And just when my initial reaction was that maybe we were seeing the workings for a WCW WWF supercard. You know what they say about something that seems too good to be true. I saw a lot of comments as I was going through these posts referencing the Blood Runs Cold stuff, because there may be people listening who are like, Blood Runs Cold, what does that mean? And what a disappointment that must have been. So basically, WCW, around the same time, for weeks, were airing these vignettes, these promos, that would end with the words, Blood Runs Cold. And nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was for. They were probably assuming it's for some big new debut. What it turned out to be was the debut of Glacier. Now imagine what a disappointment that must have been when the big reveal finally happened. But imagine Diesel debuting as Glacier. That's a visual I'm trying to picture in my head. Diesel debuting as Glacier. Now that would have been funny. Jackal says, this is really pathetic. You have billionaire Ted buying WWF stars to have them job to their ancient wonders. When Vince got Marc Mero, did he abuse his talent by having him job to some of the jobbers to the stars? No, he decided to use the talent he had to make him into something. which in my opinion is so much better than watching Razor and Diesel jobbing out to others, like Huckster and Nacho Man. So, these people were convinced, you could tell, the tone and tenor of these posts, these people were convinced that Eric Bischoff was bringing Diesel and Razor into the company just to job them out to the WCW crew. Which I guess would have been a fair assumption to make at the time. It was an all-out war, you know, especially from Bischoff's end. I mean, he was giving away spoiler results. He was challenging Vince McMahon to matches on pay-per-view, although that came a couple years later. I wouldn't have put it past Eric Bischoff to do that. It would have been stupid to guarantee them all this hundreds of thousands of dollars to just bring them in and job them out. You know, to give them that much money just to do that with them would have been ridiculous. At least Eric wasn't stupid enough to do that. Finally, Richard says, my 2 cents. Razor and company will destroy the good guys. With the money that Bischoff is paying them, we'll see a few faces leaving WCW. Razor and company will be responsible for, quote, ending the careers of a few faces. This will get them over huge as heels. Also, we all know that Hogan will be returning sometime. When he returns, he'll be stomped into the ground, with people booing Razor Ramon and company, which Eric hopes will revive the cheers for Hogan. Hogan will eventually beat one of them, probably for the world title. This final post is timely, given that WWE just recently ended its 30-year relationship with Sky in the UK, and started airing on BT Sport. So this post comes from June 20th, 1999, so we're fast-forwarding a few years. A post titled, An Open Letter to Sky Television Concerning the Filth of the WWF. This was a post by Sabu424, who also used the name Make Some Noise and Remove It DJ Ran, I Hate Rap. Say that 5 times fast. Says, this is the Sabster here. I'm trying to organize a campaign against the awful WWF programming we get on Sky Television here in the UK. It is my intention to campaign to get WWF removed from Sky One and either put onto a premium channel with limited access like Sky Sports, or one of the movie channels, or taken off altogether until they can reform their ways. Please drop me a line if you want to help my campaign. And so here what follows is the letter that Sabu here sent to Sky. Dear Sir or Madam, the World Wrestling Federation used to be a decent, wholesome, family-orientated, he meant oriented, organization that catered for adults and children alike. They offered a mixture of wrestling and the battle between good and bad, all wrapped up in a family-friendly format that was a joy to behold. However, it all went wrong. The WWF signaled its intentions 18 months ago when they gave a platform to the convicted rapist Mike Tyson, and since then the decline has been steep and rapid. The WWF has always had a rather patronizing attitude towards women. This objectification of women has continued apace in the WWF, and nowadays women are depicted as either lesbians, prostitutes, or the lovers of the wrestlers they are with. There are no real role models for girls within the women of the WWE, or WWF. Just a host of caricatures and stereotypes that would be far better suited in a Benny Hill sketch. It can be no coincidence that some of the top wrestlers in the United States, such as Bret Hart, no longer allow their children to watch the show stateside due to its lurid content. Recently, we have had scenes of a wrestler in bed with another wrestler's wife who was supposedly filleting him, a wrestler being filleted by a man in drag, a wrestler sitting on a toilet defecating, and much, much worse. What concerns me is that when this sort of thing loses the ability to shock, what will the WWF turn to next in their attempt to shock people into watching their shows? I was so outraged at their on-screen antics that I boycotted their recent tour. I would urge you to consider the immediate removal of the WWF programming from Sky Television and to at least consider replacing it with wrestling from WCW, an organization which is family-friendly and also entertaining. At a time when our Prime Minister, Mr. Blair, and the government are rightly putting a lot of emphasis on the family, it is a shame that Sky sees fit to broadcast this vile, putrid filth that masquerades as entertainment. In conclusion, I hope you will consider what I say and see for yourself just what a den of inequity, being a little over dramatic here, I think, but anyway, the den of inequity that the WWF and its programming has become. It is a poor role model for our nation's children, and I hope that an organization headed by a committed Christian, Mr. Murdoch, will realize that it has a moral duty to the people of this nation, especially the children, to ensure that we are not bombarded with this utter filth and depravity. I hope Sky will take the right course of action. I will also be writing to the ITC to voice my concerns, and they had to take action against the WWF once before. I await your response. That is from Sabu424, the paragon of virtue that he is. He obviously did not get what he wanted, although I do believe WWE did move to Sky Sports many years later. All my UK people can clarify this for me. I could not find a date on when the move took place other than they moved to Sky Sports. But Sky One still may have kept maybe an abbreviated version of Raw. Maybe on Sky One, I'm not sure. In any event, Sabu would have fit into the right to censor perfectly. That probably was his favorite faction of all time. I'm surprised that Russo never created a character called Fellatio, given his run there in the late 90s. Instead of Horatio, it's Fellatio. I'm surprised he never did that. Angel chimes in. He says, "We live in a country where we should be allowed free choice to choose what we do and don't watch. We do not live in a police state. I resent other people trying to tell me what I can and can't watch. It should be my choice." Nexus 6 cut right to the chase. He says, "If you don't like it, then fuck off, you silly wanker." So, this has been your weekly reminder that if you don't like it, you can fuck off, you silly wanker. I just wanted to say that again.